Welcome to the Defining Moments Black Men series of the Authentic Joe Show. I'm Jolena Johnson, your host, and it's my privilege and pleasure to welcome today's guest, Mr. Corey Gulley. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. How about yourself?
Good, thank you. I'm so glad you could make it.
Great, great. I'm glad to be here. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for allowing me to be here.
It's my pleasure. Can you tell us a little about yourself, your occupation, and your background?
Well, to start off, I am an artist by avocation, so I've graduated with art degrees. However, I'm an entrepreneur and I own several business units. I own a shop called The Car Doctor. I own a dealership, and I actually have a consulting company. So stay pretty busy, that's for sure.
Yes. Okay. I didn't know about all of that. What type of consulting do you do?
Well, business to business consulting. My wife and I started a company called Impact at one particular time, and it was really because of her expertise in the training side of things and my expertise in the business side.
Oh, that's
So
wonderful.
it's been great. It's been interesting to team up with my wife, and we hope to, as our kids move on, expand that business and start doing some more with that.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's very much needed. Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, how would you describe yourself?
If I were to describe myself, competitive, driven, motivated, and more so than anything, a leader.
Okay. All right. If you had to pick a phrase that would be the theme for your life, what would it be?
It's a great question. The best phrase that I could come up with would be that a man's success cannot be weighed on his success alone, but the men that came before him.
Mm, that
That
is
would be that would be my phrase for my life.
okay. All right. I love it. I'm sure we're going to learn more as we hear about your defining moment. So let's see.
Yes.
Um, so oftentimes people will say, well, what is a defining moment? So I'm going to share. A defining moment is a point in life when a pivotal decision must be made or when an experience fundamentally changes a person. What defining moment would you be willing to share with us today?
The best defining moment that I could use that I think would help motivate not only youth but people of my age would be the fact that um, in the midst of me starting my career as a young black man, we always seek to find something that helps motivate us.
Mhm.
As black men, we're visual. So as we're visual, we see things and we're motivated and driven to those things. And that still is happening today. Well, for me, I was working in a job that I felt that there was a dead end for me. However, my mission was to position myself at that particular time at Xerox.
Okay.
Xerox was a company that created phenomenal salespeople, and anyone that worked at Xerox at that particular time, once they left, their resume was already written in gold, so they could go almost anywhere. I met a gentleman that is my children's godfather and a big brother and a mentor to me now that kind of showed me some things that I really needed to see at the time. I was already internally driven, but I hadn't seen anything that would make me so driven to go to another level. And when I saw him, I met him through a mutual friend. This mutual friend told me where I was supposed to meet this guy, and the change for me was seeing that I'm sitting here in a parking lot and there's a canary yellow Porsche. Well, I'm looking at this 120 some $1,000 car, and I'm like, okay, well, my guy's probably going to pull up in a Benz, a Beamer, and he's sitting there in a Porsche. And for a kid that's 22, 23 years old, I had never seen a black man in something like that that wasn't a professional athlete, an entertainer, or something like that. And he was a salesman. And I'm looking at this and saying, God, you gave me exactly what I needed to see for me
Mhm.
because now I see it's possible. I
Mhm.
always thought it was possible, but I'd never seen it firsthand.
Mhm.
Therefore, I couldn't put my hands on it and say, Corey, this is what you're going to do. And from that point forward, I never said anything about the car because now I'm driven. I
Okay.
never said anything about the impact that he had on me now because I need it. But
Mhm.
one of the things that I realized because my grandparents had always shared this with me is you take something special from that person that inspires you
Mm-hmm.
Equip yourself with it, and then you put it to the test and roll with it best you can. And my mentor, my brother, my children's godfather, he's been that rock for me ever since I met him. And he's one of the reasons, no, he's really the only reason we're here in St. Louis now, because he's the reason that I got to Xerox. So that was my defining moment. And how I define it and use it now is I pay it forward the same way he did.
Mm-hmm.
So when I meet young men that come to one of my businesses, or I meet a young person, or someone asks me to sit down and have a conversation and try to mentor a young black man or a young person, period,
Mm-hmm.
I talk to them about the things that they see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have the cars, I have those things because I know that that's the first thing that a child will gravitate to, as did I. So that's how I use my defining moment, because not only was it about seeing the car, it was about seeing the professionalism, seeing
Mm-hmm.
how he carried himself day to
Mm-hmm.
day, seeing how he was a father, a husband. And without saying, that goes hand in hand to be successful. You can't have a raggedy home and be successful, and you can't have a raggedy career and have a wonderful home. So again, that was my defining moment to help me understand what I was going to be as a father, as a husband, and as a successful businessman.
That is fantastic. So can you tell us maybe three things or so that you began doing differently as a result of this interaction?
Honestly, at the end of the interaction, I started to carry myself totally different.
Okay.
When I was going to my job, I was working as a loan officer, and it was a great start for me because it gave me the opportunity to build relationships with people. Well, those relationships started to become more definite and refined.
Mm,
Why? Because when I'm speaking to him, he's refined. So I'm
mm,
mimicking everything that I saw in him. I'm driving myself. And now, instead of me saying, okay, these are the things that I'm going to accomplish, I started cutting out things and putting them in front of myself every day. So if I
mm,
wanted that car, I would
mhm,
see that car every day when I woke up. I would see that car when I opened my binder. I would start motivating myself because now I have something that I'm driving towards.
mhm,
And lastly, I think it just helped me understand just being a man, because sometimes as a young black man, you don't understand what success is. Yeah, I was raised in the church and I saw all of the older black men and how they carried themselves with their families and all. But it's something else when you have someone that brings you into their home and
mhm,
they don't have to.
mhm,
It's something else when you see the happiness of another man and his family. And at that particular time, I didn't have a family.
mhm.
So I'm looking at the Cosbys in my mind's eye firsthand.
Right.
So, and this is what I want. So
Mhm,
my approach to relationships, my approach to how I handle people, my approach to just generating relationships
mhm.
changed in that one setting, meeting him.
That is fantastic. Now, do you want to mention his name, or are you purposely not mentioning his name?
Oh, I mean, I'm purposely not mentioning his
Okay.
name because people know who he is, and that's
Gotcha.
really good. But you
Gotcha.
know who he is as well.
Gotcha. All right. All right. Sounds good. Okay. So, especially, when I had my radio show, I interviewed you, and you talked about something that was really important because of your car business. You had talked about the importance of purchasing a vehicle when young people are getting ready to go to college. Purchase a vehicle that's going to work as opposed to a vehicle that was pretty.
Yes, yes,
Okay. And so I love that I'm tying that story into this because, of course, you see this canary yellow Porsche and you're like, oh, wait a minute.
absolutely, absolutely.
And I love what you said, men are visual. Okay.
Yes,
So if you were to, if this is your opportunity. So let's say a younger black man, and he may be 22, he may be 35 or 47. Um, when he's thinking about his goals, especially in today's world, as it's changing, I would risk saying devolving in some ways
yes.
and evolving, right?
Hmm.
Change. So, what are three things that you would tell a young man to do or not to do at this time, knowing the nature of young men and knowing the current climate of today? What are three pieces of advice you would give him?
The first advice I would give, and I give this to my boys every day, is to first and foremost know the company you keep.
Okay.
Your elevation is only as good as the people that are around you.
Hmm.
And that one person that's in your circle of friends can be the negative egg that pulls you down or distracts you from having the success that you seek.
Hmm.
Um, the second thing would be true to who you are. Stick
Hmm.
to who you are. Because, as I share with my kids all the time, no one can be the best them that they can be. No one
Hmm.
can be better at Corey Gulley than I am.
Hmm.
And when I recognize that and I stand on that, either I make adjustments and fix myself,
Hmm.
or I run with it because I'm confident in who I am and I'm successful at what I'm doing with it.
Hmm.
And those are the pieces of advice that I would give. And it's kind of going to be an oxymoron when I say this because my whole premise on how I changed was based on the visual.
Okay.
But times have changed so much that instead of looking at the visuals of a man, listen to what the man is saying and watch what he does.
Hmm.
Because a man can make his mouth say anything.
Yes.
And hopefully, this generation understands that having mentors is going to be the key to their success.
Hmm.
Because now the climate has changed so much that we have so many educated young black men and young black women.
Hmm.
But the opportunities have become more scarce because we don't know anybody.
Yes.
We're not paying it forward. We're not bringing our brothers up or bringing our sisters up when we have the opportunity because to certain degrees, we feel that if we do that, we may lose our own opportunities. And it hurts me because I see that as my child is attending an HBCU now.
Hmm.
So, for me, my goal was put my child in a position where he was around elite and everything about him would be elite with an HBCU.
Okay.
And to certain degrees, there are those situations, but we need work too.
Hmm.
And I think that, all of us are a work in progress. So
Hmm.
if I could give those three snippets of insight to any young African American or any young person, those would be the things that I would say. Be true to yourself, know who you're around,
Hmm.
and go for it.
Hmm.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're 21, 22, 23 years old. If you fall on your face, you can get up.
Yes.
You
Yes.
45, 55, and you didn't wasted all that time. Now you got some changes, but you're probably there because of the company you kept.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so I have a question. You mentioned that you have art degrees. So how did you end up getting into business with art degrees?
Well, as an artist, I had a lot of interesting things happen for me when I was an undergrad.
Okay.
And one of the things that happened for me was I was selected to represent the state of Missouri from Nebraska and what they call is a art retreat in Lake Chautauqua, New York.
Okay.
Well, it was ironic because my peers and my teachers, for the most part, of my professors, recommended me. And I'm like, no one's going to select a young black kid from Nebraska to represent Missouri. Not going to happen. And the craziest part of this for me was they set up an interview without telling me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. But I step in here and there's 120 gray haired white women.
Wow.
And I'm looking and I'm like, there's no way this is going to happen for me. So to make a long story short, I interviewed twice and they brought me back and they felt that I was the best candidate to represent Missouri. And I said, this is God, this is crazy. I mean, we're talking SLU, we're talking every university in Missouri selected someone, and I'm the person that you select. So they sent me to Lake Chautauqua, and that's upstate New York.
Mm-hmm.
And this was really an art retreat. And in our world, you remember The Real World, how they
Yes. Oh yeah, the first reality TV show. Right.
this is
Mm-hmm.
what I really participated in. I mean, I had students from all over the country. My roommate was from North Carolina State. We had people from um, Georgia, Texas, Canada,
Mm-hmm.
New Zealand. It was really a hodgepodge. No, of course, I was the only one of color,
Of course.
but
And we're
this
talking
wasn't.
about, are we talking about like the late 80s or
This was the early '80s.
early 80s?
Well,
Okay.
no, you're right, the late '80s,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
actually the early '90s, because I was in college.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So from that perspective, I had a firsthand knowledge of seeing true artists. I
Okay.
met Steven Spielberg. I'm in
Wow.
a class and Steven Spielberg is here. And, again, not coming from much of anything. I'm an athlete, not
Mm-hmm.
knowing much. I see the itinerary and it says who's teaching the class, Steven Spielberg. And I'm like, okay, that can't be E.T. Steven Spielberg. Lo and behold, it's E.T. Steven Spielberg. And it blew me away because he's not an artist, but people that have pay him to be in his presence. So
Yes.
he's teaching an art class and has no artistic ability. Craziest thing in the world, but it was interesting.
Wow.
So, to make a long story short, I then started to travel outside of the campgrounds because once you come on ground, you're not allowed to leave.
Okay.
It was one of those campuses, there's no television, there's no phone, you have the newspaper. So I escaped the real world and I'm here. And when we finally went out, we would go to like Niagara Falls, we would go um, cave diving and different things like that. And I would see these
Mm-hmm.
artists outside of campus selling their work, some of them in the rain, beautiful pictures. I mean, artists way beyond my capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And they're selling their artwork just to make money to eat. And I'm thinking, when I get back to school, I got to change some things up because this is not good. They're 100 times better than I am.
Gotcha.
I'm stealing their techniques
Mm-hmm.
on the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
So from that perspective, I came back and said, hey, I'm gonna have my art degrees, but I'm also have a business degree to follow this up because hey, if I can't sell mine, maybe I can sell someone else's.
Oh, that is a fantastic story.
And that's how it happened. It's just how it happened.
Wow, that is so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, thank you.
And even though you say Steven Spielberg isn't an artist, it's kind of interesting because art is so, is it like painting? Like I have paintings behind me, and my mother painted these paintings. She didn't paint that
Okay.
one. That's just me and wine and paint, but she's an artist. So when
Okay.
people say, "Oh, that's so nice," I'm like, "Yeah, that's just wine and painting. That's 2 hours having good fun with my friends. I can't do this, right?" And so I
Right.
grew up with it. And so when I'm working with people and I'm consulting with them and helping them write their books and things like that, nobody would say, well, that's art. But in a way, it is because you have to have a vision for what you want,
Yes.
as you're saying, in order to create something. So you start off with 3 bullet points or 11 statements or whatever, and you start with nothing, and then you end up with something published. Or you start with an idea. Like I can hear the things that you saw Niagara Falls, you met international people, you were the only young Black man, like you said, how did this even happen? It was destined for you, I
Yes.
think, to help you with your vision, because like you said, 100 old white ladies in there, and then they choose you from
Right.
Nebraska.
Absolutely. And I don't look anything like them, but they all
Well,
love
also,
me. It was
you're
crazy.
from Nebraska and not Missouri.
Yes. Absolutely.
So I love it. Well, Corey, I just want to say thank you for taking the time. The first day I met you, you had done a little presentation. I was like, man, that guy has a lot of knowledge and he's just so motivated and exciting. And I just knew that you were somebody who cares genuinely about people. So to hear a little bit more about your story and how it happened, and to encourage people to get mentors, I think that's very important. As you said, I think we're about the same generation, or around the same age. And I think we aren't doing that. We aren't picking somebody or picking a group of young people and saying, hey, let me share some mistakes. How about that? Let me tell you 5 ways that I messed up. Don't do what I did. Make some new mistakes, right?
Yes. Yes.
And that's part of the reason I wanted to do this series, is because I don't think we don't have the neighbors anymore. We don't have the people down the street who are helping people fix tires, or show them how to do things. And so I think we're missing a lot in society. So I want to thank you for pouring into our viewers, whether they're our age, older or younger. Thank
Yes.
you for the work that you continue to do. How long, just because you said you and your wife are doing your business, how long have you all been married?
We've been married of over 22 years now.
That is so
So
fantastic.
it's been a great ride, and we're hoping that when we're empty nesters, we can do another 20.
That sounds great to me.
That sounds great. But I also
Okay.
want to say thank you to you, because you not only have been a mentor to me, you've been an inspiration, because what you're doing is that outreach that no one else feels that they have to do anymore. And at the end of the day, you motivate me to want to reach further and further out because of the way that you're able to present your story, your task, the things that are important to you. If it wasn't for you, some of these folks that wanted to write their books couldn't get it done. If it wasn't for you, stories like mine, or stories that motivate people, are not going to be shared. And especially in this climate, especially in our demographic, is necessary, because we need help so that we can help the younger generation, because they can only go as far as we show them and as far as we
Absolutely.
lead them. And right now, we're not leading as well as we should, because I think to a certain degree we've given up on a generation because of certain things that they're doing. But
Mhm.
it's still up to us to plant that seed so
Mhm.
that we can try to right the ship. So
Absolutely.
I
Well,
thank you and I commend you and praise you for everything that you've done.
thank you so much. I greatly appreciate that, Corey. Well, here you have it on another episode of Defining Moments. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Corey, for your time.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless you as well.